and this is my first YouTube stream. I've done a lot of Google Hangouts and YouTube streams in the past, but always with other people. Today I thought I'd just give it a go, try it out on my own. So, a bit nerve-wracking, but this is, for me, just a bit of a test. And I thought I'd just, try it out. So, all I'm doing today is I'm just going to carry on and, just keep it going. So, thanks Aaron. Aaron's just in the background here helping me out, and it's good to know that I'm live. I just wanted to do a quick test and, keep this going here. So it's good to know that you can actually see me and see what's going on my screen. I've got a piece of concept art here that I'm working on for a client, and I just wanted to do this stream, keep everything going, make sure that I could actually set a stream up on my own, because normally when I've done streams and everything like this in the past, I've done them, Aaron's actually set up the stream and I've just come and kind of hung out and worked on his streams. So I've never had to set anything else up on my computer. I've just kind of leached on his stream. So this time it's all on my stream. Right, so this piece has been approved by my client for me to work on further. This is a futuristic cityscape, but there have been some amends that have been asked for, and quite simply, one of the first ones has been, it looks a bit too gold, as if the city looks like it may be made of gold, which wasn't the idea that I was going for. What I wanted was for the city to be bathed in sunlight. So so I'm going to change things up a bit. Maybe go for a kind of a blue light. So I'll change this up a bit and just change the tonal color here. Thanks Aaron for clarifying that my volume and sound and everything's coming through. There we go. I could have done this in Corel Painter, but for some unknown reason when I started working on this piece, just fancied actually working in Photoshop. Don't know why, but cities are more of a technical piece, and it's one of those things that when something's really technical, maybe I just feel like working on them in Photoshop, because I feel I always do a bit more of a better job on technical work in Photoshop. I have no idea why that is though. Just literally no idea. You've just seen a Bluetooth keyboard connect. There you go. To my computer here. I'm using a Wacom Citiq 27QHD, which is the big flagship model. So here you can see I'm just changing the color tones of the buildings. Aaron says that the stream shows in my subscription feed and there's the featured video on my channel. Cool. Aaron, is there any way to know if anyone's actually watching me or if I'm a dribbling idiot talking to myself at the moment? That'd be brilliant to know. If there is anyone else watching, apart from Aaron, please chime in and talk to me. It would be ace to know if I am in fact a dribbling idiot. I don't know, maybe my mum's watching. Hi Mum. I obviously don't want to make this like too green either. Make it more gold for the client. Could make it kind of purpley. You know, I could go through all the hues. I don't want to make it too... There's a million ways I could go with this. But, yeah. You know, I have to be subtle about this. I don't want to go for that grey kind of 1970s concrete look either. But, yeah. You see, spraying a colour over the whole thing and then changing the hue of it like this is a nice, easy way of being able to say, hey, you know, this is a subtle way of being able to change the hue of a piece. There we go. I can just take it out like that, and then I can drop the opacity of that even more. And that's, you know, if you look at the difference between that and that, that's loads. And then I can just grab my eraser and get rid of some of that from the top. So I've still got the golden sunlight at the top, but just not as much at the bottom, and that's great. What I do want to do anyway is watching now. Hi guys or girls. The live control room page. I have no idea what that is. Thanks Aaron for tweeting. What I do want to do as well is just grab this folder, keep my original, and I'm just gonna actually I'm just gonna flatten the whole thing. Select all, copy and paste. The reason I'm doing that is because there's probably a lot of junk inside and outside the frame edges that I don't want to keep, you know, as I move things around. And I'm gonna actually, you know what, I'm gonna use my lasso tool to kind of do this. There we go. There we go. Because we're going to change up the composition a bit. Reason being, I love this, but this building takes up, for me, it dominates everything. A little too much. So I'm just gonna pop it down there a bit. And then this main section can kind of creep up a bit and come back in. There we go. It's a bit better. I'm not too worried at the moment. Hi Adam. Alright, so be creative. AB's, yeah, hiya. Yeah, see, we do actually do work that's not just completely silly. Yeah. Are you just on live stream all the time watching? No, it's great to see you again. Yeah, for me the trouble is this main building is too overshadowed by this side building. You know, for me I kind of want to move this out of the way a bit and kind of move this central building in more, because it is about it being a city, but you know, I kind of want this central building to be more of the main piece. So maybe I should in fact kind of do that and chubbo out the main building like that. Kind of makes the whole piece feel a bit more epic as well. Maybe that's just me, but yeah, that whole now feels. If I just pop that in a folder, see the difference between that and that. I'm not on about the lighting. I preferred the gold look, but tell you what, get rid of that for a second. That versus that. Do you see what I mean about the scale of the main building now? I mean, it's just a rough sketch, but I think you can see how much more the main building looks a bit more impressive now. Right, so what I want to actually do now is I want to quickly do you know what? I'm going to quickly do something just to see if something works for Aaron. Oh, got a Photoshop warning up there. Hey! Aaron, can you see my face? Can you see me at all? I just thought I'd switch on my camera there and see if Aaron could see if that would go on my live stream, because Aaron and me were both wondering whether you could switch on and off your camera during your live feed. Plus, it'd freak AB Creative out to know what we both look like. Or would it? Because have we used our cameras on our live feeds before? Can't remember. Okay. Switch it off now because I'm going back to work. Hey artist Modra. Put it away, yeah, okay. And at least it didn't crash my live stream to have my camera on there as well, which was the whole point of this feed, was just to kind of test out the, you know, my bandwidth and to get my feed up and running. These little dots are going to be little flying cars, by the way. At some stage. There we go. So yeah, at some stage they are going to be little flying cars themselves. But for right now, no. They're just random things. Sorry, I'm having a look at my other screen to see the comments. Expect a little delay when you ask something for the chat. Thanks for the comments, guys. Sorry, my comments are coming through on the other screen, and it's really at the side of me, so I keep having to remember to take the time and look at that. Again, this is the first time I've ever done a live stream, so. See, I'm having to turn that layer off because it's not picking up the right colours when I do this. Do you know what? I hit this part of this building. So it's going. There we go. I do love this square brush though. I love square brushes. I think everybody loves square brushes. But square brushes do really slow down Photoshop. They really do. You can see the lag sometimes. If I make this brush really, really big, and I'm not going to do it, then you can really, really see the lag. And it sucks. But that's why I would never, ever use square brushes on like a really quick speed painting, because you're not going to get it done really, really quick. For years I didn't use square brushes because I thought, oh, it's just like a real fad that, you know, a lot of artists go, oh yeah, square brushes. But you do come up with some nice stuff from using them. I will admit they do give you a nice feel. One thing I will say is that I've noticed Photoshop has improved its colour picker recently. I think the latest couple of iterations of CC has done something to its colour picker. So it's a lot sharper than it used to be. I like to use a lot of really strong colour variations. So you know, a lot of vibrant colours. And I've noticed those are definitely improved upon what they used to be. I don't know if anyone else has spotted anything like that as well. Hi, Steve. I love your channel, by the way. I noticed you had some really nice Procreate videos on there. Yeah, the palette knives can be really fun. I do think that painters' palette knives are more realistic. In a lot of ways, you know. But I think that in general, I think Photoshop's brushes, you can tell that they've tried hard, and while they've got a lot of the technology down, I mean they've focused more on bringing together the 3D elements, but that's their audience. I think, you know, I think that's the thing, that they know who their audience is, you know. Painters for painter, and Photoshop's for photo retouchers. You know, there's a lot of digital artists working in Photoshop, but at the end of the day, painters always gonna have an edge for artists because they work more for the artists. I think Photoshop's doing some great stuff, but they don't put too much in, if that makes sense. How much new stuff every year do they give us? You know, that's why the subscription thing works better for them, I think, than it does for us. I'm getting really muddy effects here. I'm getting nothing new. I'm just covering up stuff now with really a weird blue when I really want a brown. Oops. You can see that. It's because I've got that layer on there. There we go. Cool. Now, it's like if I just grab these layers and bring them all together here, I just drop these layers and go to my brushes, and I use the mixer brush tool, which is oops. That's one thing I hate about Photoshop, is that basically their undo for several stages you have to press Alt and undo. I've never liked that. But yeah, if I go here, turn that off, load 0%, no, you have to go to that. Right, this is their blender brush. It's actually not bad. I mean, this is as far as I'm concerned a recent addition. You know, I've been using Photoshop for years and years and years and years and years. You know, I remember Photoshop in its fairly infancy, you know, kind of like 1993, since I was using Photoshop. I think Photoshop came out in 1987. That's when it was kind of around. That's when it started out. If anyone knows differently, let me know. But I think their blender brush is pretty good. I actually like their blender brush. Now this kind of, whoa. I will say this: this isn't lag, off of like live stream or anything. This is just the blender brush not liking the square brush. Yeah, there we go. That's better. So the blender brush doesn't like the square brush there. One thing I do like about Photoshop though is the quick, you know, all the little brushes that you can have. I mean, I don't typically use all the brushes, but yeah, sometimes all these little texture brushes that, you know, you can bring in are actually really useful if you just want to lay down a quick concept piece like this. And I can supply this to a client and then, you know, have it approved, and then I can come in and turn it into a serious drawing later on. You know, the clients come back with a couple of options, a couple of comments, and you know, and now I can go away and turn it into a real drawing. One thing they've actually said that neither of us expected was they liked how modernized it was, how simplistic it was. The simple reason for that was just the fact that I hadn't really drawn on Windows. Which, you know, realistically I wouldn't have done in a concept piece because it takes too long to kind of draw all the windows in. You know, I'd be a crazy fool if I went and drew on loads of windows. I suppose I could have gotten a brush to kind of help me with that, but in the other way, yeah, I didn't. Well, maybe I just didn't, but so I just realised this building over here is A, horrible, and B, kind of far too obstructive. So I'm just going to circle it off. I was going to change it, but cut it and paste in place. Now I'm going to change the hue and saturation. Maybe make it if I make it uber dark, but take all the saturation out. And I could also leave the saturation in for a minute. Change the colour. Make it a bit Blade Runner-ish. And then, oops, I saw something nice there. Was that blue? Yeah. Then desaturate it. Yeah. See, that makes the building there jump out. So I'll okay that. Now I could knock it back to there and just there. Do that. That works. But then I have to draw back in this sky, which isn't a problem. And I'll just change my brush. And I will just stop for a minute so I can look at my chat. Nope, no one's chatting to me. Am I still online? Just someone pipe in for a minute and tell me if I'm still online. Let me know if I'm breathing. Just draw a bit more one of these cars in. Let me know you're alive, I'm alive, everyone's alive live. Guys, I'm getting worried. AB, you out there? Cool. Now I'm really worried as to why everyone went quiet. I know I'm not some sage master who is giving you such good advice that you were just too busy listening. I'm assuming that I just put you to sleep. In some weird, awful way. Or maybe there's just terrible lag. And it took 5 minutes for that question to come through. Has anyone got any questions for me? Be cool to actually answer some questions. So I just change up my brush size here. Carry on. There we go. Maybe just change the hardness down. It's actually a good time to change back to that kind of square brush. Just because that square brush has a bit of choppiness to it. You know, I could actually go back to that Photoshop mixer brush. Man, they just didn't want to call it a blender, did they? It's not as if Painter owns the word blender either. You know, there was no need to get stressed out about who owns the right to the word blender. But there we go. Obviously, add sky clouds into that sky as well. Totally using the wrong brush for that. I don't have to worry about it right now though. I actually have a really good set of Photoshop cloud brushes that I made. If you look out on my channel after this, once I put this up on my channel, once I put this the copy of this up on my channel, in the description I will put a link to my Photoshop cloud brushes for you, because they're already set on Dropbox now, but I will put a link to my cloud brushes, and if I forget, then somebody remind me and I'll do that, because I've given them away a few times before, and I'm fine with that. They're really good brushes as well. You know. And I can actually make this darker, so you see the cars disappearing into there like that. You can have more cars coming in from here. There we go. That looks nice and cool. I don't know why, but I love drawing the futuristic cars. Actually, I know exactly why. And I'm going to use this. Hang on a split second. Here we go, I'm back. I'm probably breaking so many rules of live streaming right now. There you go. Alright, for me, one of the thing of the futuristic cars, for me, was this book. My copy is a bit worn and tattered, as you can see by the spine. That is why I love drawing futuristic cars, and that man is awesome. I do have like the new and updated version. If you've ever seen any of his work, you know, Chris Voss is like the boss of kind of old-fashioned kind of space art, 70s, 60s kind of funkalicious. I remember I had that book when I was a kid, like about 5. It blew my mind, and that guy's one of the reasons I wanted to be an artist. So when I'm drawing these kind of flying cars, it's not Back to the Future I'm thinking of, it's Chris Voss's artwork. That, you know, I kind of want to draw these all stripy and, you know, zebra patterned, but yeah, obviously the client would never allow that. But yeah, those kind of the shapes in there, so cool. For me, I see a lot of people drawing like all these mech shapes now that are very angular, and that's so not Chris Voss, but yeah, I don't know, there's something more beautiful about that work than there is about the new kind of mech work now. I love the curved stuff. I don't know, I get a bit sick of seeing all the new mech stuff, so yeah. Anyway, get back to it. Yeah, I love Jim Burns too. Jim Burns is awesome. The Little Skinny book, the Little Skinny Chris Voss book is virtually, I don't know, it's really, really old. I don't know if that's that easy to get anymore or really, really impossible. It might be really easy to get now. You know, there might be thousands of copies floating around, or it might be uber impossible. You know, it might be like a collector's item. My copy is so beat up and old that it doesn't matter. But my copy's not going to be worth anything. But might be the fact that, you know, the new one's cool. The new one's got loads of stuff in it. Yeah. Yeah, I like shit. Is that the one with loads of sketch work in, or is that the main portfolio one? That's my Bluetooth keyboard going off. Alright, so next thing I want to do is fill in all this hole that I kind of created, but do it with a proper brush. So now there we go. Do you know what? I'm doing totally the wrong layer. Should have created a new layer and stick it underneath. There we go. Now I don't have to worry about anything. not overpainting, I'm underpainting. There you go. It's nice and easy. I don't have to worry about messing up any of the illustration on top. Now I can just get a little bit of a smaller brush. Come on in. So this is really, really easy as well. Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, I was just reading the comment there. Collapse those two layers. Just zoom in a bit more. Oops. I'll zoom in a bit more just so you're seeing more as well, because I don't know, you might be viewing this any old who. You could be watching this on an iPhone for all I know, or any other brand of phone. So you kind of just assume that everybody has an iPhone if you've got an iPhone, which is a really bad trait to have, because typically speaking, iPhones aren't the best phones in the world. I don't know why everybody thinks that iPhones are the best phones in the world. Just, you know, just cause. It's like I have one, but doesn't make them brilliant. In fact, this is when you use the blender. I mean, none of this is real. This is all just sketch, so all I'm trying to do is bring it together enough so that when I come and try and say I'm happy enough with the rough that I can start on any detail work, you know, once the basics of it are good enough. You know, I just need to get it straight in my head. And at the moment it's not there. You know, if I turn this on, that's where it was. That's where it is. So I'm a little happier with it. Not quite, but a little more. Turn that new layer off because I've just seen something else, which is basically, I know I haven't selected any pixels, be quiet. Which is the top of this building. Copy, paste. Zoom right in. Top of that building is just too big. What I could do is leave it there, but then do a free transform and kind of slant it in more, and then move it over a touch. So I'm actually warping the perspective a bit, which I can kind of get away with. It's fine. I don't think anyone will really spot that too much. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll pay for that. Maybe I can realign it. Maybe I shouldn't try and... Just going to turn snap off. I don't need it on, it's annoying me. There we go. Okay, so that works better. Just get some, remodel those lines now. There we go. That works fine. Yeah, that looks fine. Well, hopefully. Yeah. See, the building looks taller at the top, so it looks like we've got a bit more perspective in there. Actually looks better now. It looks, yeah. I like that a little more now. Actually looks like if I just took those 2 layers there now, and if I grab that side of the building, copy and pasted that, and brought that down. Gee gads. Sorry. What's happened is those 2 layers need collapsing first. Okay. Alright, so we did it over here. And then we brought this out like that. If we do it properly, by properly I mean completely guess, like that. There we go. Our building might look I was wondering if I could like warp this, but it would be kind of really hard because I'm not at the right angle. Okay. Yeah, hi AB. Yeah, I'm using OBS and Aaron showed me how to completely set it up. I think there's probably loads of YouTube videos, but given the fact that Aaron already knew how and I was a complete novice, I just got Aaron to show me how to use OBS. It's really kind of like wow. To be honest, I think the settings weren't actually that difficult. It was more the OBS intermingled with the YouTube settings that, you know, the whole thing of typing in your YouTube key into OBS, you know, I think that might have stumped me. There's probably a bunch of YouTube videos about it though, aren't there? There's probably like 1,000,001, but I don't know. Hey, you just got to see on screen my my Citiq remote thing popping up there. So it can do all kinds. But yeah, I use my remote all the time, but doesn't always, that bit doesn't always pop up. Not if you write really quick off the mark with it. If you press it sometimes really slowly, then it pops up on the screen. But well, this is what this kind of is for me. This is actually just me screen testing OBS. and seeing if anyone would show up, because I didn't, I kind of didn't promo this at all. I didn't tell anyone I was going to be doing a live stream. I just thought, hey, I'll just do a live stream, see if anyone turns up, but mostly see if it just works at all, and obviously it is working and it's going okay. Originally I was just gonna kind of just start drawing something, anything, and see what happened, but Aaron said to me, hey, just maybe start off drawing something that's already well on its way, rather than just start off with a blank canvas. And to be honest, yeah, that was a much better idea, because people don't want to jump in and just see you drawing absolute nothingness, which is fair enough. I mean, I can get from a blank canvas to something pretty quickly, but do you want to watch me draw do you want to watch me work on something like this, or do you want to just watch me draw a sketch for a couple of hours? This is an actual commission, by the way, so at least you're getting to see me work on something. The shape-shifting one. You've totally thrown me off there, AB. What do you mean the shape-shifting one? What do you mean by the shape-shifting one? Is this what you'd rather see me work on? What's the shape-shifting one? This is a sketch that you see me work on. No, I'm really, really lost. No, I'm just being insulted and lost. I feel like it should be a Star Wars thing. I feel like I'm being Star Wars quoted by kids. What? You haven't seen the new Star Wars yet? Okay. No, it's fair enough. It's fair enough. I mean, it is good. It is good. I know loads of people who have gone, oh, it's, you know, it's not as good as it should have been. You know, a friend of mine who I thought was going to be blown away by it wasn't. You know. And there's loads of people I thought would rush out and see it, and they didn't. You know. Myself, personally, I loved it. I've seen it so many times. I'm a giant geek. You know. But some people are that way, some people aren't. It's just the truth of it. But, you know, it's just the way the world works. Right. Next thing I want to do is these buildings in the background here. Well, I don't really like the shape, but the first thing I really want to do is kind of dull them down a bit anyway. So I've got a new layer and I'm just gonna kind of overpaint them anyway. Because the trouble is they're just too obstructive. I'm not really. They're just cutting into the image too much, you know? So I need to just get rid of these a bit. I think that's fine. You know. We're not getting rid of them this much, by the way. I don't want to totally annihilate them. They'll still exist afterwards. But I just want to kind of bring out the other elements more. Because for me, one of the big problems here is just the fact that the right things aren't standing out enough. So I'm just going to reduce that on my canvas and just kind of play with that and see what's the right, because that's how it was, but I need to know whether, you know, it's like now the buildings, those three kind of buildings stand out well, but is it too much? You know, they're only at the end of the street, but it's like, that's quite cool, but it's too much. When's just too much? I think that's fine for the tops, but I'm gonna have to just grab my eraser and just pop out the bottom like that. See, and that makes a big difference. Yeah, that works for me. Shape-shifting bounty hunter, yeah. Okay, I get the shape-shifting bounty hunter now, yeah. Yeah. I didn't like, yeah, it's pre-course thing, you see. It's a pre-course thing. I didn't like the shape-shifting bounty hunter. I didn't like her face. I don't like your face. I didn't like that character. The only bit I liked out of that whole scene I like the chase scene with the vehicles. I liked when Obi-Wan told him off about losing his lightsaber. I did like that. That bit of chemistry between Obi-Wan and Anakin then, in that scene, kind of really worked nicely. You know, and I liked when he told him off about losing his lightsaber. I liked when the guy came up to him in the club and said, "You want to buy some death sticks? You don't want to sell me death sticks. I don't want to sell you death sticks." I liked that. That felt very original trilogy. And that felt nice. Do you know what I mean? That felt really cool. But sorry, just taking a drink. But you know, for me, that was kind of one of the nice bits of the trilogy. But the face of the bounty hunter, you know, I didn't like. And I didn't like the fact that Boba Fett or Jango Fett just kind of shot her and just went boom and disappeared off. And it was so obviously, it was just kind of really badly done. It's just like, you're the worst bounty hunter ever. You haven't made any attempt to hide yourself from being, you know, you're like a crap assassin. You know, so for me, it's kind of like there. But then again, I never got the whole Boba Fett thing. Even when I was a kid, I was like, Boba Fett's rubbish. Why does everyone like Boba Fett? I think Boba Fett, the only reason anyone ever liked him was because of the toys. You know. But I'm probably going to get slayed for saying that. Yeah, the vehicle sound effects. Yeah. Everyone loves a cool vehicle, though. And everyone knows that. So yeah, I'm going to flatten these layers. I normally like to work on a hell of a lot of layers. I will say that. I will say though, in truth, if you want to work fast, the fast way to work is not layers. You want to work fast, then you clamp down your layers. But the only trouble with working faster is you you have a lot of trouble going back on yourself. You know, you find it harder to undo stuff, you know, if you don't have those layers. It's like I've folded these down now, so you know, what do I do if I want to go back through this now? Don't have a lot of options. You know, it's a case of redrawing things. Client already signed off this sketch. I could take it a lot easier. I don't have to redraw as much of this if I don't want to, but fact of the matter is I do want to. You know, it's not just for the client, it's for my portfolio as well. You know, an illustrator lives and dies by the work that we do, so I'm really just trying to define the shapes in the buildings at the moment. Back here. Trying to get something interesting going on. maybe some nice things for the vehicles to fly through. And to drive on. It's kind of cool. Like that kind of platform slash cog kind of feel. It might be kind of a motif. I did have a tiny bit of a design brief when it came to the buildings themselves. I won't go into it because I don't want to spoil anything. I don't have an NDA on this, obviously, otherwise I won't be drawing it on YouTube, but I don't want to give the game too much away. You know, and I did discuss with my client, is it okay if I, you know, make YouTube videos and everything while I'm painting this, and they said yes. So. There we go. And there's a bit more there. That's good, I'm happy with that. What memorable responses have I had to my work? Hi Miles. Oh dear. Good or bad? Nah. Memorable response. That is a good question. Don't know, I've got a bad memory. I've had a lot of really nice, you know, kind words said over the years, which is lovely. I'm trying to think of actually, you know, nice things that have actually been said, obviously. But I'm trying to think of a statement that's actually been said that I can remember the actual words to. But I literally have such a bad memory. I'm struggling so hard to think of the actual words. I really am. God, I feel like such a bad person now. No, I just can't think of any of the actual words. But then again, I literally have medical amnesia. So I have forgotten people. You know, people have come up to me on the streets before and been like, sorry, who are you? That's not good. But, you know, I've lost entire years of my life, like childhood years have gone, vanished out of my mind. You know. The funny thing is, the funny thing is that work is one of those things where I like to work on jobs like book covers, for instance. Book covers are one of my favourite jobs because when you do certain jobs, you might do a really nice big job where you can be really well paid and it might be a fantastic job for your portfolio and, you know, everything else like that, you know, well recognised job, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, you work like a dog and no one will actually say thank you, and at the end of it you're exhausted and you feel like crap. But you do something like a book cover and your name is on the back of the book, you know, it says cover illustration by Lawrence Mann, etc., etc. You open it up and, you know, in the acknowledgements, the author has gone out of their way to write, you know, thanks for such a great book cover. And then, you know, when they didn't have to, they could have just acknowledged their editor and stuff like that. You know, on top of all that, you know, you've been paid as well. Sometimes, you know, you get that free copy of the book through the post, you know, that's signed, you know, and they've bothered to... That stuff's awful there. And they've bothered to write a really nice message inside. You know, it's not just a randomly signed copy that the editor's pulled off the shelf. You know, it's personally signed, you know, saying thanks for putting in the hard work, etc. You know, and they've gone out of their way to say thank you. You know, I've even had really nice phone calls. One author that I did the cover for her book, one thing I remember, okay, so this isn't like a statement or anything, but one author, she went out of her way to talk to the publisher, and she found out what my favourite book series was, which is Dare the Triffids by John Wyndham. I actually own first edition. And she found this out, and she went out and she bought me a folio version, which is like the very nice, you know, limited edition print run version, which I found out aren't actually cheap. And that just arrived one day through the post, and that was absolutely beautiful. And it was brilliant. It was absolutely beautiful, and I loved it. And she didn't have to do that at all, but that was just, you know, like a thank you for doing her book cover. And obviously I'd been paid by the publisher, but it was a really, really nice way of saying thank you. And obviously she had no reason to do that. You know, she wasn't the one paying me. She wasn't the one, you know, in need of it. The publisher was. So, yeah. I mean, that's better than somebody saying thank you. It's free stuff. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully that helps answer that question a bit. I see Aaron is going. Have you already gone, Aaron, or are you still lurking in the background? I'll see you later, buddy. Thanks for helping me out with this. I have no idea how long we've been streaming for. I should have looked at a clock when we started streaming. When people do check out, make sure to say goodbye, obviously. I mean, I'm just going to keep working on this, so if you want to hang around and, you know. But, yeah. Who's still here? Let's have a bit of a roll call. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I take it, AB Creative, you're still here, and Artist Modera. You guys are always on YouTube. Always on live stream. Which I think is very, very cool, obviously. How did you find me today? If you're still here. Yeah, sorry, I just wasn't looking at them for a little while. Miles just wrote Miles. That's just popped up, so I don't know if that's if that's only just popped up and I've only just seen it now. So if the rest of you have seen it ages ago, then you know it's lag. Does that sound fair? Aaron might have disappeared ages ago and I didn't spot it. There's no kind of time capture on the comments, so I can't tell who left a comment and at what time they left them. Oh, it's cool. Cheers there, Be Creative. I think I saw you on my Twitter followers as well, which is cool. If it was you, I followed you back. Yeah, I listen to a lot of YouTube stuff as well while I draw. But I end up listening to a lot of rubbish as well. Like Christians versus Atheists was one of the things I listened to the other day. A lot of Star Wars stuff, like, who is Snoke, rubbish like that. Oh, a lot of videos. Just really random stuff that isn't relevant to anything. Just funny videos about Sarah Palin. It just makes me laugh. Yeah, American politics videos. Yeah, anything that's really good for a laugh. I keep focusing on little detail points, and it's just like, don't, because you're not anywhere near that point in time. Yeah. This all looks a bit Willy Wonka down here at the moment. These buildings are looking a bit too curved. I don't think I might get away with that for my client, but so I think drag some of this back in. I've got some nice curved stuff over here that he liked actually, so I think maybe if I reintroduce some of these as lines. And get away with some of this. I can do that and pull that off, but I have to just come back to it in a bit. That'll be fine. Do. Oops. Tell you what I am going to do. No, well, I'm not going to tell you. No, I'm just going to think about it for a second. So let's flip this off. So that's where we started, and that's where we are. It doesn't look a great load of difference when you kind of stand back at this point now. But if quite a lot has actually changed. Definitely the composition feels a lot more open. Yeah. I definitely feel a lot happier with the piece. One thing I do want to add in is I want to start getting more smoke in here. This is one of the cloud brushes that I mentioned that I've got. So I'm just going to take this and kind of try and muddy up my image a bit. Just got to find the right colour first. Oh no. What have I done? Yeah, that might be it. Okay. So I'll just undo all of those. Right. I'm just going to turn the opacity down to about 68 just to make sure it can't go above that. And the idea just being here that this is like smog. Tell you what, I'm just going to open this up. It's like a new canvas. And I'll show you this here. Why is nothing? There you go. See that? That is... Whoa. That is a... How clearly you can see that? That is a cloud brush that I created myself in Photoshop. And tell you what, there you go. That's a cloud brush that I created myself in Photoshop using a photo of a real cloud. Really simple to do. I will put up a tutorial of how to do it as well. No, don't save. But yeah, really simple to do, and you can just make clouds like these ones that are already in the background. They're just done with this cloud brush. I'm just gonna jack this down a bit. Just add some. See, what I wanted to do is maybe add some blues into that. See, now I'm going to have to add some reds in as well. There you go. Just wanted to add some red around the back of the car because we got the light and everything. Yeah, that's fine. I have no idea which layer effect to use. See, you could go one way and have something like a screen or a light and just to really cloud it over. But it's not going to help because the top of the buildings is that kind of goldy colour. Colour dodge is never going to work anyway. Overlay, it's just going to make everything muddy. Yeah, hard light is just going to give you that 90s Photoshop look. Yeah, smoke. Yeah, I've just read AB Creative's. Yeah, it's smoke from all those old Chinese men who are sat smoking little pipes and going, "Ah, yes, I know the secret to life." And you know, yeah. And in the future, sci-fi movies, everybody's having to visit them to find out, everything. It could be dust, but it's more symbolic smoke. The idea that the upper echelons of the buildings are filled with rich people, while down on the ground, everybody, the lower working classes, are all scummy people who have to live in smoggy. If you get what I'm saying. Luminosity actually works. And that gives us a nice kind of vibe. Obviously, we just have to knock that down. Well, that's cool. He's saying excellent to the excuse I just gave, or excellent to the fact that luminosity actually works for the smoke. It does work, and we can also copy the layer and notch in as something else as well. Sometimes using two different varieties works as well. I thought multiply would have been it, but maybe it's because I've got it turned down too far. Yeah, see, that does work, but nah. It's worth a try. I think maybe just stick with luminosity but jack it back up. Do you know what it is? I've just realised. It's a really easy fix as well. Luminosity, just grab the levels. There we go. Nicely. And then you just need to Paint a little bit more from the side. Add that in again. Put that one in on screen. Might be a little too much, but eh. Maybe it's because that one's too much. There. I can always come back and fiddle with that. I think that's better off on, you know, come back with that later. But I'll leave that as a kind of separate folder anyway. I'll turn it off for now. Miles, how was your practice changeover? What do you mean with me doing the live stream instead of Aaron? Is that what you mean? You know, the more I'm looking at this, the less blue it looks. It just looks kind of grey, so I'm just going to grab that and... Oh, that looks really nice now. I'm going to boost that saturation. Grab my brush. I'm going to stick with the cloud brush, just to be a weirdo. I'm just going to paint some of that in there. And I'm going to... Oh, I did that all in the wrong layer. Now I'm really confused. How's overtime? No changeover overtime. Do you care to rephrase the question, sir? I'm actually going to have to go back in with this and kind of delete some of this colour, just because it's... Well, maybe not. Maybe just add in a bit of another colour, like a red. Oops. I don't know what you mean by how was my overtime, my painting technique. How was your practice for painting techniques changed over time? Right, okay. Yeah. It's funny because my painting technique changes from every painting to every painting. I'm not one of those people who every day says, oh, I paint in Corel Painter, and I start off with a sketch, and I do this, and I do that, and I do this. It's really weird. I don't have a set routine. I wake up some days, and today I paint in Photoshop, and I go straight into a full out kind of painting with no sketch. I will just start laying paint on a canvas, and start working into something. Literally no sketch. I will just start throwing colours down. And another day I'll open up Painter and start sketching. And then I'll put the black and white down, and then I'll put the colour on top of that. Really strange. That I work in completely different ways. It just depends how I'm feeling on the day and what the job is and how I feel is best to kind of do that. So I don't have any set technique. It's really weird. It's just how I feel that day. And I don't know, just kind of how, because normally I see the image in my head before I begin painting it, and it's just about how I'm going to pull the image out of my head and put it down so everybody else can see it. It's kind of like, do I want to draw construction lines first, or do I want to just kind of try and paint it down as fast as possible? And which is the best program to kind of get that done? For this one, I could see it really clearly in my head, and it kind of felt a bit technical, so I thought, all right, well, let's use Photoshop, because I know Photoshop has some square brushes that kind of Painter doesn't have, so I'm going to try and do it that way. And I didn't draw it, I didn't sketch it out, I just started throwing it down, but I did it with a square brush. So I used Photoshop, and I could have laid it all out with guides and used perspective grids, but I thought, nah, I just want to throw it down. But I wanted to do it with a square brush first, which is really weird. But, I could move this over to Painter now, or I could use something else, but, I'm completely happy just doing this, and, using the lasso tool to continuously rip it apart, But over the years, I started off in Photoshop I started off as a traditional artist. So, drawing things by hand, I was first taught second and third point perspective when I was actually about 10 at school. They took several of us aside and taught us that, which was really weird. But, as a digital artist, I first learned. Sorry, I'm not drawing here. I first learned Photoshop. That's better. I first learned Photoshop as a digital artist. So I think many of my digital techniques stem from that. I think now, coming forwards, I work in Corel Painter a lot. So I think many of my techniques come from Painter. It depends what I'm using mostly on a day-to-day basis. I pretty much paint every day. I don't get to paint every day like I used to, but I pretty much paint every day now. So, just noticed this floor isn't even level across the whole way like it should be. Oops. That sometimes happens with a brush when it slips back to 0 and you haven't even noticed. There we go, and just draw that in. I'm just going over the top of this really quickly, and then I'll scrub out bits. There we go. Nicely done. Give me his legs back. That's not important anyway. There we go. But yeah, over the years my techniques have kind of been very fluid. I've never tried to cling on. I've always tried to, you know, watch other people's techniques and try and learn from everybody else rather than but I think one of the worst things that people do, and one of the worst things that I've noticed as the internet's evolved more and more, is copy other people's styles. And I'm noticing that more, especially with the evolution. I mean, I saw it a long time ago, more and more with DeviantArt. People, used to put up stuff and go, look what I've drawn. And it's just like, oh my God. And it looks exactly like the artwork by, kind of Adam Hughes and that. It's just like, wow, have you just raided his portfolio? You could tell it wasn't like, they hadn't traced anything, but it's kind of like his style. And it's just like, I kind of get it. It's just like Adam Hughes makes a lot of money, he's a really famous artist. His stuff is really nice, but do you really want to? You're not gonna be famous by copying somebody else's style. No one's going to give you any jobs because you can copy somebody else's style. So that can be, oh, not AB Creative. See you later. Yeah, I am quite. I forgot where I was now. Never mind. But yeah, it's all just about developing your own style as well. Right, I'd say this was a successful enough test of the YouTube live stream, and I don't know if there's actually anyone watching or not. I know AB Creative has said he's off to bed. Is there anyone else still watching? So I'm going to call that a day and go and get some food, and I'm going to carry on with this another time. So thanks everyone for watching, and I shall speak to you again next time. Remember to subscribe, and I shall see you in a bit. Thanks a lot, guys. Catch you later.